Welcome back to Kodsnack. I'm Frederick, and in this episode I talk to Malin and Kai of Triple Glazed Studios, creators of Mercury Weather, Orbit, arrangers of multiple meetups, and overall plain nice people. They last visited the podcast in October of 2022, but they're so nice that we got back into the swing of things pretty much immediately. As usual, links to everything we talk about are in the show notes. On with the episode. Upgrading my ISP today, but I haven't switched over yet. Yeah. It felt really dangerous to do right before the recording, so I'm going to do it afterward.
Oh, no, that's exciting though.
Does that mean you get more speed or just a different provider?
It's gigabit for 10 crowns cheaper than the 250 we had before.
Nice.
But it's over the same cable, so we'll see if we notice any actual difference, but still, it feels good.
Do you have fiber that comes to your house?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so that's...
And how much do you say? It's 240
no, it's like,
crowns now?
It's 10 crowns cheaper than the previous one, but I think it's, what is it, like 430 crowns or something like that?
Mm.
Okay.
That's not bad.
That's about the same price as here, right?
It's actually slightly more expensive than here, which is weird because usually Sweden and internet stuff is always cheaper. I'm quite excited that
I feel like it depends a lot on exactly where you are in Sweden. If you're on the right, some places have like city networks, and then you can have super cheap prices. I think a friend of mine has, I think, also a gigabit connection, and he pays like a fourth of the price. But he seems to be some kind of special, really special case as well.
Yeah. When we lived in Umeå, we were on, I think it was called Bostadsnet up there. And that was like 10 crowns per gigabit per month.
Yeah.
That was
That's good.
Essentially free.
Was that just because it was student housing?
I think student pricing was also, student pricing was super, super, super cheap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think we had Bahnhof up there.
Yeah, we're getting Bahnhof now as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love the knowledge of like Swedish, since we left a while ago now, it's like very scattered knowledge, but there's like still certain things that we're definitely keeping up with.
Yeah, those important touch points.
Yeah, the brain works in weird ways. It's like I'm. You meet people at a conference and you forget their name immediately, but then you remember the prices for your internet connection from 12 years ago.
I still remember my ICQ number from like
oh wow,
last used that in probably like 2002 or something.
Yeah, good job, brain. You're doing great.
Exactly. This is really useful. How do I defragment you? Maybe we should do a clean reinstall at some point.
Yeah. I don't know if I would want that either.
No.
I do know my passport number, but it's up for renewal. I'm kind of sad about that because I will.
Yeah.
It's like I think at this point it's completely solidified knowledge. I think I will keep that forever.
Yeah,
so.
probably.
Next time we're at any kind of immigration, it's like, give us the passport numbers from the last 10 years. So like, I gotcha.
Yeah. Prove that you're you.
Yeah. How are you doing, Frederick?
I'm doing good. It's like feels like summer. It's been kind of a busy month with work stuff and so it's good.
Yeah.
In a fun way?
Yeah. Pretty much all fun.
All right.
We've had like
that's good.
Our yearly user conference at work. So it's like 350 people or something like that. So
wow.
Yeah, so that's great fun, but it also drains you completely for a couple of days. And then I was actually to a small developer conference in Italy the week before that.
Okay.
Yeah, which one?
It was called JS Day. It was a small one in Verona. But
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, no, I'm not even sure how I discovered it. I think someone in the Slack for Kodsnack said that they were going, and then I looked at it and was like, this looks nice, and there are tickets available. It's awesome.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah, so it's nice and small, but it was arranged by a group called GRUSP, I guess, and they apparently started arranging like PHP conferences in like 2010. So they've been going on for a while, and they added more conferences. So they were really professional. Was it really well organized? So
Was it a single track or multi-track conference?
It was single track.
Yeah. Do you prefer multi-track or single track?
I think in general I prefer single track. If it's nice to everyone be in the same place. I mean, of course it's fun to be able to choose sometimes, but I still think.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on how big, like how focused the conference is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you have if you have a conference that's only focused on like JS or Swift, then I feel like you sort of tend to be on the right track already.
Yeah.
But I always find it hard to, like, both for attendees when they're multi-tracks. You have to always because I don't know, usually when I go to a conference, it's so busy, I barely know what time it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also having to make decisions based on the title of a talk is really hard. And it's also, I always feel bad for a speaker because sometimes one talk just sounds super, super appealing. And then
you gotta get some clickbait titles in the
proposal. Or there's someone you've never heard of, and the title doesn't sound that exciting, and then it turns out to be a great talk afterwards.
Yeah,
that's kind of sad as well.
Yeah. So you always feel both like you have to make decisions, and you're worried about missing out on the other thing. So I much prefer single track.
Yeah, if it's multi-track, I want it to
make it easy for us.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree. But this is a really good time to go to a conference in Italy.
Yeah, it was perfect. Got some extra sunlight.
Yeah. Oh. So that was your excuse? Like, I don't actually care about JavaScript. I just want some sunlight.
No, not for me, but I actually went with a colleague. And we were talking as we were like heading to the airport, and he was like, yeah, at first I just said yes because, Italy and sun and stuff. But then I looked at the conference tracks and it looks really nice. It's super interesting, actually. All reasons to go are good, right?
Yeah. I do think that's a good strategy for conferences in the South. I think they should all happen between like November and February.
Oh, yeah.
I would go to if there would be a Swift conference anywhere in the South between December and February, I'd be there immediately. That seems like such a no-brainer.
Yeah.
and outside, that would be nice too.
Now you're just adding, you're adding a lot of criteria to those poor organizers.
We can just hang out in a coffee shop outside.
Yeah,
from November to February. That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, there is a list of tracks and speakers, but it's actually just people sitting around together. This time you can talk to this. I think that could work really well, actually.
I think there's something for like a super, super casual conference where you still have like people that prepare stuff, but it's more of a casual setting where you just...
Yeah, I went to a really nice one a bunch of years, sometime pre-pandemic, so it could be like anywhere in time. But was also it was in Gothenburg. It was a single track conference, and all the talks were, I think they were 30 minutes, and there was always 30 minutes break in between. So you could you had lots of time to talk to people in between. So that's it's most relaxed tempo I've been. Yeah, they had really good coffee as well.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
I think that's a good ratio. We were just coming back from Deep Dive Swift.
Yes,
in Chicago. That was super, super fun.
Yeah,
but it always felt tight. We had usually between like 15 and maybe 20 minutes in between sessions.
Yeah, which is quite a lot, I think. Often they tend to be like a 5-minute sort of hot swap.
Yeah, that's
people just like change microphone. And, but no, I felt like Josh was very generous, giving people time to actually socialize in between. But it still didn't feel like enough.
Yeah.
We still felt like, maybe we should have like 3 more days just for socializing.
Yeah, exactly. There must be some kind of great trick someone can apply to a conference where you actually feel like you have the right amount of time to talk to people. Yeah. So you don't always have to go to a new talk just when you're getting started in the conversation.
Yeah, because you also don't want to stay out in the lobby without going into the talk because you have an interesting conversation.
No. I guess that's kind of an advantage of big multi-track conferences, because then you don't feel like you're snubbing someone by staying by missing one of the talks.
Yeah,
you can snub 2 people at once.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I go to Öredev every year. I can snub like 6 people. No, but I guess that's kind of an advantage.
Yeah, but I guess it's always better when you feel like the socializing time is too short, because sometimes, you know, you also don't want to be like, run out of conversation with the person, now you feel awkward.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice when it's
too
like,
short
all right,
is better than too long.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so Deep Dish was good?
Oh, that was super good.
Was it second time the conference runs?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so we were there last year as well, presenting as speakers.
We gave the very, very first Deep Dish Swift talk ever, which is pretty cool.
Historic.
Yeah.
That's cool.
We sort of volunteered because we thought it's nice to be done. I like to have a conference talk very early, because otherwise you sit there and like you see all the other people's talk and you want to tweak your talk, but we didn't have any time to do so. But we did help sort of get all the technical problems out of the way if there would be anything.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's very nice.
And we were 2 people, so we figured it's easier if there are technical issues. It's easier to resolve them when you're not standing alone on stage, because worst case we could have like on stage banter about the technical problems, which is a lot harder when you're there by yourself.
Yeah. But this year we didn't give a talk, and it was quite nice to be a bit more relaxed, sort of leading up to it. We have still been recording podcast episodes called.
I haven't caught up with all of them.
Awesome.
Quite a few.
You have?
No, not. I haven't caught up with all of them.
Okay. It would be impressive.
Yeah, you seem to have a pretty intense schedule with the recordings, right?
Yeah, we did 17 episodes in a month.
No, I think it was 2 months.
No, I looked the first when we released at least our like podcast back end said when I uploaded the last episode, it said that the first episode was 4 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
And they do some rounding. Might have been 5 weeks, but it was almost within a month.
Yeah. So it was a lot of recording, but it was so much fun because the whole idea is that we wanted to have a good excuse to like talk to people.
Yeah.
Like we like chatting with people.
Last year we actually started it because it was a procrastination project. We didn't. It was really nice. Josh asked us, "Hey, you want to give a talk at Deep Dish? There's a new conference I'm organizing." And you can talk about whatever you want. And we're like, all right, cool, that sounds fun. Yeah. Turns out when you get a blank card to do whatever you want, you spend a lot of time figuring out what you want first.
Yeah, exactly. it's so much harder that way.
Yeah. And first we thought, that's easy. We have so many things to talk about. Yeah. And then when we had to decide, we're like, oh no, we have so many things we want to talk about, but we kind of have to pick one and not, we can't really give a talk about 50 things at once. So in our efforts to figure out what we want to talk about, we thought, hey, wouldn't it be fun to have a podcast to talk to the other speakers and then get an idea?
Research.
Yes. And I don't know if it quite worked out. It just added like, let's prepare a talk, which takes a lot of time, and let's record a podcast that takes a lot of time. So it wasn't the smartest time management decision we've ever made, I gotta say.
But you got a lot of productivity into that time. That's for sure. I feel like the two of you and Charlie Chapman, you should have a long-running podcast. I feel like you have the flow.
I don't think we would get anything else done if we would do that.
I think we all have to quit our jobs. And
sure, that's kind of a loss, but it would be a big win for the rest of us.
But I think that will also lead to even more inflation of podcast length. I'm afraid we might lead to 8-hour episodes or something.
Yeah.
I think it's good that we maintain some real-world constraints.
Yeah, that's true.
The podcast.
But that makes it extra fun when it does go off the rails every now and then.
Yes. But I do think that is sort of a fun challenge that we have made us now. We made it last season in we had to make it before the conference, and now for this year's conference we also had this sort of time limit. So it was nice to sort of make it into more of a season where we intensely talk to everyone and edit and then get it out there. And I think I sort of like the seasonal podcast idea.
Yeah, that's a really nice idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was good. And then since it was so fun last year, we felt like we wanted to do it again. And there was a lot of attendees last year that felt like they came up to us and said that they really felt more connected to the speakers, and they were all sort of very excited when the speakers came up on stage because they felt like they already knew them and they were hoping that their talk would go well.
Yeah.
So we thought it was nice to sort of bring that together again, and it's also a great way for people to like get excited about the conference before it happens and get a feel for it before getting tickets.
Yeah.
So
And the feedback was really good.
fun.
People that listened seemed to like it, and also a lot of speakers told us that they had a lot of people walking up to them talking about things, that they talked about in the podcast that they could talk about that kind of resonated with them, or
it sort of works a bit like an icebreaker as well for many people.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
But the whole idea is, as well, is that we are talking about their talk at the conference, but a big part of the podcast recording is more about like their general story and how they get into development. And I think this season was very cool to hear how many people were none from a technical background when getting into iOS development. When like people from music background, math background, and
I think that's
just very different paths.
One of the results of COVID. A lot of people were kind of forced to figure out something new, right? Because one of the speakers, she is a musician, so she performed like on Broadway musicals and those kind of things, and those obviously didn't happen during the peak of COVID. So she had to figure out a different thing to do, and development is a thing that you can do extremely well from home or anywhere.
You don't need that much stuff.
So that was really cool to see. So many people that are like, her talk was absolutely excellent. I learned a lot.
Who was this?
And this was Jessie Linden. And her talk was about Swift UI gestures, which are very tricky to get right. And she had a deep dive of like how the entire system works and how you're combining a whole bunch of gestures and how you can kind of chain them all together, and not just to make it work, but to actually understand what you're trying to express in the language and what happens and those kind of things. And that was a super, super, super well both researched and executed talk. I learned a lot. And Malin and I have been working with Swift UI gestures since the day it came out.
You have a bit of background there.
So that was
it's so great to hear you people dive into stuff.
Yeah, but overall, the talk quality was almost intimidating how good all the talks were because every time we saw a new talk, I was like, oh man, that must add so much pressure to the speakers coming after, because once you have like 10 extremely good talks in a row, I would feel almost like, oh no, can I live up to? Because
starting first is still a great idea.
But I don't think there was definitely not a single talk that didn't go well. They were all different too. There were some that were technical from a storytelling perspective. Some of them were technical, but almost more of a humorous performance. It was really, really good. Yeah, can't recommend the conference enough.
Yeah. So was it 2 days?
Something 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, starting and then there was an indie track, or like another track. It was half a day was dedicated to indie development. And that was also fun to have a different perspective into this kind of the same world, but from a very different perspective, right? Some people work in companies with hundreds of people, and some of the indies, work by themselves. But we're still kind of doing the same thing. It's very fascinating.
I think it's interesting. Indies often have like similar problems they have to solve as big companies do, but they are like one person doing it, so they have a very different insight into like how to balance those things and sort of learning about like how to build a community or marketing while like also doing development. So it's always fascinating.
Even within that, there's quite a spectrum, right? Some indies therefore hack things together a little bit more because they don't need to worry about other people reading their code, and they can get something out that way. Or others like Chris Vaselli, he gave a talk, and he has probably one of the most sophisticated build setups I've ever seen, including big companies.
Oh,
like
wow.
he automates everything because that's
which makes sense, because if you're a single person, spending a bit of time automating things can be beneficial. But sure. I think everyone doesn't go that route, because it also takes a bit of time to start automating things, and it's a bit intimidating as a single person. So very different approaches.
Yeah. Very fun.
Yeah,
you should come next year.
Yeah, really should. should really do some Swift coding as well. It's been.
I think no matter what, you'll
I would have a great time. That's for sure.
Yeah,
no question about.
Have you had deep dish pizza?
No, I don't think I've had anything that qualifies.
All right.
Well, I'm pretty sure I haven't.
Yeah, it is very good. Like Kai and I were skeptic at first, and we weren't really sure. But then we tried it, and it's like it's just a really nice meal. Like, I'm not sure if people would classify it as pizza in the same way as other pizzas, but it's just a really tasty thing to eat. A lot of cheese. Yeah, very, very good.
Yeah, so I think someone said maybe during one of your podcast episodes that it feels more like a pie than a pizza. Is that sort of?
Yeah.
But even there, I don't know how much we want to deep dive into the range of deep dish pizza, but even there, Giordani's is one of the original deep dish pizzas, and that is quite a lot thinner than like a Luminari's. Okay. Luminari's is a pretty thick deep dish pizza. Well,
that's a big thing. It's fingers measuring.
It's great for an audio medium that I show you with fingers.
Yeah,
how thick.
Maybe like 15 centimeters. Serious pizza.
Yeah. So that's like a really, really, like Luminari's very, very, like that's probably, if you would Google deep dish pizza, that's more what you would show, because it's the most extreme. While Giordani's is probably what I actually prefer, which is a little bit, it's maybe, I would say, better description for audio medium, maybe 3 or 4 times as thick as a normal pizza you would get in Sweden at a pizza place. So still oddly thick for pizza, but not like this, this extremely heavy thing. And then it's like, it's very nice. You should. One more reason to come to Chicago next year.
Proper pizza research.
Yes.
Sounds great. Yeah. So what else is going on for you? Besides podcasting and pizza.
Wait, there's more to life than podcasting and pizza?
I can imagine that that's filled up quite a bit of time recently.
Yeah, I am trying to remember when we chatted last. I think we had released Mercury.
Mercury was out. It was in... the episode was released in October of 22.
Okay. Oh, wow. It hasn't been this long.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
So then that would have been right after we released the first version of
I think it was
Mercury.
Pretty
new. Yeah. Oh, wow. Now it also feels like it was so long ago we released Mercury. It doesn't feel that long.
No, maybe a year tops.
So we've been busy with both that and a few other projects, but I think the biggest thing that we've been really enjoying, like related to like conference and travel, is we've been working on a new thing called Trip Forecast within Mercury, which is basically, it feels like it's a feature that was like super fun to build, because we had already started thinking about this feature when we built the first version of Mercury Weather, but then the first version was a weather app, like other weather apps. Like it worked like a weather app. Yep. But it's nice to actually have something that is like a very specific feature that we hadn't seen in another app now. And we sort of had it in the back of our mind when we released the first version. But it was just a lot more work to get this feature out, and we want to get things out for iOS 16. So we decided to limit the scope and then sort of get into those like more unique features that we wanted to get. So it's been fun.
Yeah,
and we're also super, super proud of the outcome. you know the normal curve of first you think, this will be super easy. I have an idea. Now I just write 100 lines of code and it will be solved. And then you get in and you're like, oh, there's an edge case. Oh, and there's another edge case. And here's a fundamental problem. How do we solve that? And then you're at like thousands of lines of code and you're like, I think we're almost halfway there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think maybe I should explain a little bit what trip forecast is before we go into deep into it. So it's, it was basically sporting from us. I think traveling during WWDC or some travel, we were looking at a weather app and we felt like it's a bit strange or a bit unfortunate that like we are going to be at a different location in 2 days, but the weather app still shows us the weather for where we currently are.
Yeah.
And we thought it would be really cool if that would just sort of, that timeline would inject the new location that we'll be at. So it's basically a weather app that's specific for me and where I'm going to be in the world. So that's when we started that in this flow where you can add a trip. So if we are going from Vancouver to Cupertino in 2 days, we can add that as a trip. And then in sort of the weekly timeline, it will show the weather for Vancouver and for those first 2 days, and then Cupertino for the days we're going to be in Cupertino.
Yeah. And then Vancouver for the day that you're arriving back home again.
Yep.
Yeah. And that sort of helps because you don't have to like switch between different locations when you want to look and you're preparing to pack. And it was also super satisfying when we were traveling during the winter because we were going from Vancouver down to San Diego during the winter. And it was nice to sort of see, like, we saw the temperatures being like 5 degrees Celsius, and then like in 2 days it's going to go up to 23. And that was just very motivating.
And then it was very sad when we went back home, and it went from 22 back to 3.
That's what I did. I used the forecast for when I went to Verona as well. Same thing there. Coming back was kind of rough mentally. But I mean, you can tell. You can tell it's been a lot of work because it feels so straightforward and natural to use as a user.
Yeah.
I sort of assumed, because I think maybe I read it in the beta release notes or something that it was coming, but I didn't try it until it was released. So I sort of assumed, this is probably, it takes a bit of clicking and something is surely difficult. But no, you just add it and it works.
And there's so many interesting problems. Like one is, for example, if let's say you're traveling to Australia, right? Mm-hmm. That crosses the date boundary. So what are the dates you're putting in for your trip?
Yeah, what do you mean?
What you're probably going to do is you think of each trip segment in the local time zone of the location, right? So if you're leaving, let's say, Stockholm on Friday, you put in Friday.
Yeah.
But then you fly back, let's say, the Saturday the week after from Sydney.
Yeah.
But that's actually the Saturday in Sydney, which would be the Friday still in Stockholm. So we handle all of that. So you're putting in essentially just local times for all your trips, like you would, when you look at your airline tickets, those are obviously local times. And then we do all the conversion. And then also you could have, we have one beta tester that was super helpful. He's a commercial airline pilot.
Wow.
So he might be,
for the job.
Yeah. So he might be in like 5 different time zones in 5 different days during the week. And it handles all of that nicely. So that was interesting. Yeah. Or what is a day trip? That's also like an interesting pile of edge cases. If you have a day trip to a different city, when is it considered complete? What when is it? You might also have a trip that you don't go to. So when do we consider it abandoned?
Because one thing we want to do is that if you're returning on a day, once you return to your home location, we don't want to still show the weather for the trip. So if we would go from Vancouver to Seattle, in the morning we want to show this is the weather in Seattle. Yeah. And then if you return home at like 8 p.m., we don't want to show Seattle anymore. We want to show Vancouver because you're back home. Yeah. But it is, then we have to decide like what is the threshold there? What if you just go up late and you leave at like 12 p.m. Are you still should we show Seattle or should we show Vancouver? And that's why the feature that we thought were maybe gonna be like a few hundred lines of code ended up being thousands of lines of codes and probably bigger than all the other parts of the app combined.
Yeah, we looked at some point when we shipped it. Trip forecasts were more line of codes than the rest of Mercury.
I blame the time zones. It's always the time zones.
It is, yeah. I think the time zone has a big contributor to that line count.
Yeah. But it seems to work really well. So
yeah, we're really happy with it now. We've tweaked it a lot since launching too. Most of that just happened behind the scenes, like edge cases that we didn't think of up front, or one edge case that we're like, this is so much work to fix, let's just release it. I don't know. Also, I don't know if you get the same feeling, but when you have a good idea for a feature and your mind is so busy thinking about it all the time, you're like, oh no, everyone else is going to have the same idea and going to build that too, because it's such an obvious good solution to a problem.
Yeah.
So we felt like this weird anxiety that we will, by the time we release it, everyone else already added it in all their weather apps.
I don't think we felt like that for the first sort of couple of weeks, because we didn't really... We knew there would be time zone problems, but we did not anticipate how much more work it would be. And then once we've been working on this feature for like a few months, then you really feel like, man, we really want to release this, because now we have sunk so much time into it. And if someone releases it like a week earlier than us, that would be unfortunate, because it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And because we thought like it was a very clever idea. But once you spend so much time with it, it seems like the obvious thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's also not everyone will spend that work. I mean, if someone had ripped it off, they would have done like the cheap version, and all the edge cases would have just crashed.
Yeah. If someone is ripping this off, I'd be curious to see, but Godspeed. It was quite painful there.
Yeah, please tell us how much code you needed to write.
Yeah. No, but I am very happy that it feels like, even though it's quite a complex feature to build, it feels like an elegant and like simple solution when you're using the app.
Yeah, exactly.
And the creation of Trip is very straightforward.
And it was nice. There was actually an article on 6 colors as a result of us releasing a feature, and it was like an opinion piece that more of iOS should work the way that our trip forecast feature should work.
That's a good one.
But that was when we built Mercury as a weather app, it's pretty incredible that. Then there was, we read 6 colors.
Exactly.
It was pretty incredible that there was an opinion piece that an idea we had should have a big impact on how iOS, the entire system, should behave.
Yeah.
The argument there was that it should know, like, if you're traveling, your calendar, for example, does not really, it converts all the times. But if you have a meeting in Stockholm and you're flying to Sydney, it now shows all your times in Sydney time. But it knows that you will probably be back home in Sweden, right, for your meeting. So now it shows you 1 a.m. for a coffee meeting with a friend. It's probably not 1 a.m. and it's probably not helping you that it shows 1 a.m. because by the time you have the thing, you don't. So now you have to always do the mental math while you're traveling back to your home time zone.
Or if you're on a road trip through Europe and you have 2 hotels booked for the same day, one ends that, like one has been for the 3 days before plus that day, and one is for that day plus 2 days. Then it could cleverly figure out which one to navigate you to. If you're using maps, for example. So they sort of brought up those arguments of like how the whole system could really be more intelligent that way, because it has all this information and it could just be suggesting the right things to the user.
It's not doing it very well at the moment. Maybe it will improve on WWDC this year. Who knows?
I am curious as well,
I'm very
especially with all the rumored like on-device AI features. I think that there could be a lot more things happening there.
It can definitely write you a very long article about your 2 hotel trips.
Get me an article about why my app feature is how everything should be done. Yeah. I mean, and speaking of things which I'm pretty sure have been released since the last time, I'm surprised how much I enjoy having Mercury on the Mac as well. I mean, it's also one of those things, like I never knew that I sort of missed having a weather app easily available, and especially as a widget on the desktop. But also, I have the app window open constantly as well. It's just so nice to have there. And get those.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I use the menu bar extra mostly.
Oh yeah. Some people. some people remember clicking on that one as well. I'm not a menu bar icon person that much, I think, because I forget to click there.
Yeah.
I think for us it was something we wanted it because we're working from home, and I think we started working on this when the weather wasn't great outside, and we felt like once it's sunny out and it's like the top temperature of the day, that's when we want to go for a walk.
Yeah.
So we thought, okay, we should just have that on our Mac so we can like glance over and see what is the temperature right now.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's a very natural thing to have like available at a glance. I mean, it's like clock, weather. It's sort of the same level of thing.
Yeah. And the interesting thing that we found is that we have a lot of people who we've been fortunate to be featured on the Mac OS App Store. And if you feature on the Mac OS App Store, since there are not as many Mac OS apps coming out frequently, you sort of tend to stay there for a longer time compared to iOS. And we found that a lot of people are discovering it there and they're starting to use it there. And then as a result of finding it there, they end up using the iOS app.
Oh, perfect.
And that's where they end up subscribing.
Yeah.
So it's sort of been this like interesting angle of like getting more users to find the app as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really smart motivation for having it on all the platforms as well. And keep running it all the time. I've used the widgets on the watch quite a bit as well, but I wonder, do you know if something happened in maybe one of the iOS versions like this winter? Because battery usage
and the widgets
increased?
stopped updating. Oh, okay.
So suddenly I started having problems getting through the day.
Really?
Running into low battery in the evening, and then someone said, third-party apps or something. So I tried removing the Mercury widget, and then it went back to before.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yes, I was just wondering.
Okay.
I'm wondering if Apple did something because it's been behaving perfectly before, and I don't recall there being any major widget-related release.
No.
No, we haven't done. We haven't done any specific release.
There was one
for that.
Yeah, there was one bigger change that happened. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but widgets used to update. Do not update during periods where the device was sleeping. So if it's on a charger or it's in some kind of other power reserving mode, and that went away. So I wonder if that's somehow related to it.
I think that happened like late last year.
I think I have a 7. But let's double check. This is important.
But I wonder if they fixed it since, because I do not.
Yeah, I should try putting the widget back, because it's been a couple of updates since I had the problem.
Yeah.
Doesn't it say on the about screen?
It should.
I have a Series 9, and I probably get 2 days pretty comfortably.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I mean, I've been using it pretty intensely since I got it. So, I mean, the battery is aging as well, of course.
Now I'm very curious where it says what version you have. Where do you see this?
I know I found it somewhere before, but I didn't now. Now I had to look in the back of the watch.
But, all right, we got to figure that out later.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know. Put it back, see if it has the impact. And if it does, I'll go and investigate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but the way we noticed that was that when we're creating the timeline for all of the widgets, we noticed that we get more and more API call usage, and then we started digging into it, and then we realized that the widget is actually refreshing during the night when you don't have your watch on. So we're actually making API calls generating that timeline for
which is like great
each hour.
Yeah.
Great for an app that pays for API calls. That just went up.
Yeah,
almost
but
doubled.
But what I do like about it, there is a benefit, because otherwise it could be a scenario where you put your watch on and the data is not up to date because it hasn't refreshed since you took it off. So it's sort of pros and cons there, but yes, we noticed an impact in our API calls.
But maybe it's updating more frequently during the day as well then. Or
it
maybe
depends on. So what we're doing in Mercury is we're updating more frequently if the weather condition, the certainty about the weather conditions is low. So let's say you have rain or snow incoming, those kind of prediction models are not as reliably longer term, so we cannot just generate a high confidence timeline for that because it might start. The expectation maybe is that it starts raining in 60 minutes, but then there's a bit of a shift, and then the rain would miss you. Yeah. So if there is rain or snow incoming, we're refreshing the timeline more, or we're fetching new data, not just a timeline, but actually fetching new data more frequently.
But that makes a lot of sense with like Gothenburg winter.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
What do you mean certain prognosis? No. It could be raining all the time.
Yeah. But if you're in the summer in, I don't know,
California,
Southern Europe, then we can just not update as frequently.
no rain for the next 6 weeks.
Exactly. So we just do one API call and just show you the same weather for
one
for half a year.
Is enough.
Yeah. No. Then we just update every hour or two if it's a very high confidence, like it's just going to be sunny all day, then we're not updating as frequently as if it's like a crazy windstorm or rainstorm, snowstorm, whatever.
I think windstorm is that's just a storm.
Yeah, I guess tornadoes.
Yes,
we did actually have a tornado warning or watch while we were in Chicago. Oh, that was interesting. I've never been affected by that in any way, and there was actually during the conference there was an announcement, so we're now officially in tornado watch, so in case of emergency here's what we need to do. It's like, oh no.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So
but that's interesting. That's something we notice. Our behavior has changed when we're traveling. We definitely focus on different features of our app depending on which location we're in. So as soon as winter comes around here, we find all those things that we could improve with how rain is being displayed or how snow is being displayed. So we have sort of like seasonal features that we're working more on. Or when we're in the middle of traveling, find all those things related to travel forecasts that just could be nicer.
So what you're saying is we have to move to Tornado Alley so we can really improve our tornado features.
The beta tester there perhaps is enough.
Yeah, but that was my first instinct. I was like, oh, tornado watch. Oh no. And then my second one was, how do we handle it in the app? It's like, oh, cool. We're actually showing the tornado forecast. That's fun.
Wow. Yeah, that's a warning, I guess. Big one.
Yeah.
But that was interesting. It did cancel. A lot of people got their flights canceled as a result, so that was unfortunate. But it didn't really affect. It
was not in your app.
On our return flight, we also got delayed, but for a very different reason. The president landed at our terminal.
Oh, you should have got a warning about that one.
So that was kind of funny that we saw like Air Force One landing. It was right outside of the window at our gate. So there was like the person at the gate made an announcement. It's like, oh, we cannot currently move any no planes are allowed to move at the moment because the president is landing. And then we saw Air Force One landing and all the helicopters that are supporting and landing, and then Biden walking off and going onto a helicopter and flying. That's a special thing. Interesting. Yeah. It's nice that they always send the president every time they have visitors in the country.
Yeah, I mean, that's it makes us feel a bit more special.
Yeah. Just for us, very nice.
We only roll out as president for the special people.
So we've been. You were asking what we've been up to. Yeah. That's a thing we've been quite busy with.
Yeah,
but we're also working on a fun client project at the moment for the movie industry.
Oh, wow. Is it secret?
No, it's not secret.
So what is it about?
It was just a clickbait of an introduction into the topic.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, it is very fun. We're working with a director who's directing like a Hollywood movie at the moment. And it's an app for people that make movies or TV shows or commercials to plan all their shoot days. And then once they're actually on set or once they're shooting, to schedule everything. So it's essentially, you can have your entire crew. So for this the movie that he's directing at the moment, there might be like 20 plus people that all in the same project. So anyone from like the props department to fire marshal and like the directors and producers and script supervisors, they would all be in the same project. They can see exactly what's planned for the day, what has how long everything is supposed to take, how long it's actually taking, which things needed to get punted to the next day because they wouldn't fit in, which things you can still there's quite a lot of it's also we learned a lot about Hollywood union rules. Did you realize that they usually have 13-hour days?
Whoa, that's long, isn't it?
Right? That's what I thought. But it's also 13-hour days, and then there are minimum rest periods. So what usually happens on Monday, if you shoot like a proper full-size Hollywood production, you would usually start around 7 a.m. to shoot on Monday, and then you would wrap at 8 p.m. And then the next day, because of the minimum rest period, you start at 8 a.m., so an hour later, and then you wrap at 9 p.m. And then on Wednesday, you had 10, Thursday, 11, and then on Friday, you start at noon, and then you wrap at 1 a.m.
Tough week.
Which is, right?
Yeah.
And then because you're shooting into Saturday is essentially, you're just getting home at some point and you sleep. And then on Monday, you start at 7 a.m. again because then the cycle starts. So that also means you lose most of your Sunday because you have to get up so early again.
Yeah. And then there's also a lot of interesting rules around, like when you have to serve lunch, it has to be, you can't serve lunch later than six hours after you call time. And if you do so, then you get really high penalties. And there are very specific scenarios where you could potentially ask to push lunch. And then there are different rules of like how long of a lunch break you're giving it. And when lunch starts, is it like usually it is when the last person gets their lunch, and it's all those interesting things. And then related to like having a child on set, children can obviously not be there and film so long. I think so that has a big impact on like how you schedule your shots. You try to get everything in there that needs a child actor, but you can't get too many things in there. So so many.
And for children, they also have, if they have like an actual role, so not just extras. They also have, if they shoot for a certain amount of hours a day, they also have to have a teacher on set. So the child is actually going through like a school type lesson. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, and everything like that needs to go into the app to schedule properly.
And then once you're actually on the day and you're starting to film stuff, things might not go exactly as planned. So certain things might go overtime, and that means that shots that you plan to get done before lunch won't fit before lunch, or you have to punt things for a different day. So a lot of interesting things that we just had no idea about because we're not in that world. So this has been such a fun project to just take on because we learned all those things. And I always been very interested in sort of the logistics of filming because we live in Vancouver, and Vancouver is known like it's called Hollywood North because there's so many things being filmed here. So I would say like at least once a month when we're walking through the city, we see them filming something. And I'm always interested. I'm like looking, I'm like, I wonder like how big the crew is and how their camera setup works and when they're like how their lunch setup works. I'm like interested in like the organizational parts and learning a lot about sort of the behind the scenes stuff is super interesting. And it's very intimidating seeing how much going into making a movie versus building an app.
So many people.
I know, and so many people. Everyone's always busy having like a specific task that they need to do. Everything has to be timed, so everything is ready.
And so many deadlines.
It's been really fun.
And we were on set for a couple of days, and it's very impressive to get how many people all know what to do. I mean, it's just kind of fun when you see like, I don't know, 20, 30 people all preparing one thing, and they all do different things, right? Someone is like still like using like a saw to build new set pieces that that broke in the last time, and then they're building a new table that collapses when someone falls on it, and on the other end they're setting up the camera, and then they have a video wall or something that they're reprogramming for this thing, and then there are people walking around for the visual effects, and it's like everything happens, and then at some point it's like, and go again. It is very impressive to how all those pieces fit together.
And people make it work. And it's not like the same people have been doing the exact same thing together for like 15 years. Everyone has been working in the film industry, but they're all like, it's all basically temporary for each film, right?
Yeah. Some people will try to work with the same people again once they find but overall, probably at least half the people have probably not worked together before.
I mean, imagine if
it's very impressive. It was.
Now we're changing out all the people for the next iteration.
And you have to work for 13 hours, and you have to start at 7 a.m.
Well, the first day,
7
not the second day.
It made us realize how comfortable our jobs are. In comparison.
It's incredible.
Also, there's usually no one catching fire at our work.
no, that's extremely rare, actually.
Well, on set, we've seen multiple people being catching fire and there being explosions. It's quite different.
It's a special thing. I was just thinking with the app and about scheduling everything. It sounds like do you have lots of people creating the schedule? Is that more of a one-person thing? Someone sort of being the key point for everything? How does that work?
Yes, that would usually be the director that... so if it's a single director, the director, or if they're co-directing, it would be like a team that that would put the schedule together, because their responsibility is to essentially get all the shots, right? They want to get all the things to their vision of what it should be like. So they would usually be the ones that are the primary ones to keep track of it.
And then there are also the ones updating along the way then, I guess.
So it's some, like for this movie, the director has he has the iPad strapped to his belt, essentially. He has like a quick release, so every time he can make changes all the time live and then snaps it back. But other productions have a person that deals with the app, so the director is just...
it makes sense. Like someone like following along all the time and keeping things up to date.
And then often having to move things out. It's like, we're not gonna, because sometimes it's also you need to get certain things before sunset, right? So there are those constraints as well, or the reverse. You need to do night shoots, and you can only do it until sunrise.
Exactly.
So there are also those kind of things where it's like, at some point, even if everyone would be happy to stay longer, well, once the sun is up, hard to shoot night scenes. A lot. It is super, super fascinating, but oh man, it's so much work. It makes you appreciate when you see like. Now we have such a different. We watched the new Fallout TV show.
Oh, wow, cool!
And it's so often that we pause and we're like, now when we know how much effort they went through to get this one shot, we're like, oh man, look! And then we're theorizing of how they possibly could have set this up for all of this to work. And every time you see like a child somewhere, like, oh man, that's so much work.
There's a Swedish director called Roy Andersson. He made a bunch of pretty artistic movies, and really good movies, fascinating, sort of really dark humor if you're in the right mood for it. But he does some or many really, really long takes. And I made the mistake of like watching a behind the scenes before watching one of his movies. So I kept thinking, it's like this shot is like 13 minutes long, and they're walking along, and people are coming in and coming. It's like, imagine how many takes this took. And someone messed up in the last minute. I'm sure of it.
But also that adds so much cost, right? Because every minute is really expensive. So if you have to redo in like 13-minute shot, because
you can see why people do short shots.
It's so, but also like setup for a shot sometimes always takes orders of magnitude longer than actual. The cameras are rolling for like, all right, we got 10 seconds that we needed, but setup was like an hour.
Yeah.
It is, it's very, 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 very fascinating. They're filming the second season of The Last of Us in Vancouver at the moment.
Oh.
And that's also really fun because they put a lot of effort into set dressing. So they're at the moment they're converting parts of downtown into like a overgrown post-apocalyptic landscape. Yeah. We should actually go by there maybe today or tomorrow, Malin.
Yeah, we should. A friend of ours went by and sent photos and like, wait, doesn't this look like? What is it called?
The Last of Us?
The Last of Us. Yeah, doesn't this look like The Last of Us? And we're like, wow. Yeah. We haven't watched it yet because we still haven't played a game. So we sort of had this backlog of like stuff we have to do in order to watch the show. But now I'm hearing so many good things about the show, and I'm a bit concerned that it will start it will get spoiled. Because once people think everyone watched it, like Game of Thrones, I think people treat Game of Thrones as like, unless if you haven't watched it yet, you probably like don't care that.
No, yeah.
So I feel like we gotta, once winter comes again, we gotta start playing the games and jump on watching the.
We really at least I should speak for myself. I really struggle with scary stuff in general, scary movies, scary games. So that was always, I've heard so many good things, but scary things take me a lot of energy to play.
Yeah.
And I mean, flat video games, a bit better. VR, like, have you played The Room?
Nope.
No? It is more of a puzzle solve. It's more like a really interactive escape room. It is not supposed to be particularly scary, but I can only play like 5 minutes at a time before I need to like relax again. And it's like small things. It's like there's this one scene where the light shifts from like being normal light to and then all the lights turn red. I was like, oh, it's so scary. I had to take my headset off.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things you never really know until you try it what gets to you and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And for me, apparently everything gets to me.
Of course. It's all kinds of levels. Yeah.
Have you played Red Matter?
No, I heard good things.
It's very good. That's also, it's like a creepy game, and another one that Kai couldn't do. But if you manage to get through it, it is honestly creepy. And there's certain things that just, it's not jump scares, but there are unexpected things happening. But it's such a cool sort of immersive experience. It is sort of it is a puzzle game, but then there's sort of built-in story. When you're on this sort of foreign planet and you try to figure out what happened. So it
is so scary. There's this one part where it's not spoiling anything. So if you haven't played, don't worry. But there's like you hear a whisper that just goes from behind you, from your left to your right. Oh. And you turn around, there's nothing there. Oh. That was so scary. I needed a break.
I think that might get to me as well.
Yeah. What were you going to ask before?
Yeah, what was I going to ask? No, I was just going to say that I had Doom VFR for PlayStation VR. And I mean, that's much more of playing an action game than actually scary. But one of my friends, he was like, no, I can't do this. There's something chewing on my leg. I can't take this. Some monster got too close.
Yeah.
But that one was completely on the right side for me. It was just more intense first-person action. It was like, yes, this is what the medium is made for. More of it.
Do you still use your VR headsets?
On and off. I use my Quest a bit every now and then with, what are they calling it? Not the Horizon Workspaces, but Meta's own virtual
Horizon Worlds?
Oh, no, just the Meta Remote Desktop. That's it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Because that works really well. I tried using Immersed for a while, the third-party desktop sharing. And that one, I mean, it worked well when it worked, but I don't know if I had like, the wrong network conditions or something. It usually took like 5 tries to actually connect. But Meta's has been much more stable and works really well. So I've been using that a bit for like working with my computers. I think it's really nice, just having a big screen and having your laptop in your lap and being on the couch. It's a nice experience.
I should try that. I've not. How does it integrate with macOS? Is it?
I mean, it works. I mean, it's basically just screen sharing.
But do you have to install stuff on your Mac?
Yeah. You have to install like a host or server app on the computer. But that was nice and small and not as unintrusive as it can be. I mean, it always feels scary to give it permission to like see your entire screen and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah. I should try that. I somehow assumed it probably doesn't work with the Mac properly.
Yeah, actually, it seemed like it had more features on the Mac. There was something about the screen stuff. They were like, we intend to bring this to Windows soon. So, okay.
Okay, wow. Okay, I should try that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice. And you can actually put it, I mean, if you use the hand tracking mode on the Quest, and you have two distances, you can put the screen. You can put it like a movie screen a bit further away from you, and then you can just adjust the size. But you can also bring it closer. And if you're in the close mode and use your hand tracking, you can actually reach out and grab the screen and move it around with your hand, which feels like a callback to the old iMac with the arm.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
In general, I think that's a surprisingly fun interaction. I do that on the Quest, even with like normal windows, not screen sharing windows, right? You can grab them and then walk around. Then you leave them
I need to try that.
Yeah, and then you can just leave them somewhere, and then they stay there. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, and it's surprisingly stable as well.
Yeah,
I never realized that.
But it's somehow fun to hold a window, like a weightless window in your hand. Somehow feels fun.
Yeah, exactly. I can bring it with me to the kitchen.
Yeah.
Coffee.
Yeah, and then you forget it there, and then you have to walk back to grab it. It's kind of silly, but it's surprisingly fun.
Yeah. So any chance of Mercury in VR in the future?
There is Mercury on VisionOS. So if you have,
I don't have one actually, which is sad.
That was surprisingly little work. We were worried initially that it will take a lot of work.
I think we were fortunate because we had already the app is primarily built in SwiftUI, and then we already had made the app into sort of different pieces into components so that we could use them across iOS and iPadOS in different sort of size classes.
Yeah.
And the layout was different on those different ones. And then we could use a lot of that when you resize in the window on Vision Pro, so that you could actually like see the layout in different ways there. And then we ended up adding, like, I think we were silly first when we started building it because we thought the app should be like, we sort of thought the app should look very pretty when you have it in this large window right in front of you. And then we realized that most people are not going to like stare at a weather app for like 3 hours in VR. They probably want to do something else a bit more productive. And then when we realized that, we thought, okay, we should actually make this sort of mini window. So it works more like a widget or a menu bar item on macOS. And you can just place it anywhere in your room and then just do your other stuff that you want. So that's when we started adding a bit more things that were unique to the platform, to add this sort of mini window that you can have, and you can spawn different ones. So if you want to keep track of different locations and the weather in those different locations, you can have like sort of like a dashboard around you of just of the weather you care about.
Yeah, it's like a world clock for weather.
Yeah.
And we also showed the time for. Do we? Is that already out?
No.
I don't know.
No, we don't.
No,
we thought of doing it, and we were convinced that might be an overkill because people have clocks for that.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's nice to have everything in one, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe it can be a setting. We'll still think about what we want to do there.
Let's take guidance from the person who hasn't tried the headset at all.
But now thinking about it, I mean, we could totally add it next to the name, and when you interact with it, we just simplify it, collapse it, so people can just, if you tap on it, or what's interaction?
Then
when you
shows.
Look at it and pinch it.
When you hover over it,
Then we can switch between the modes, so people that want to see the time there as well can have it, and others not, and it's not an extra setting that's confusing to find. That might be the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
But that only took 3 days. Maybe to get to like the release build because we had so many components that we could reuse. I think what took us a little bit longer was on VisionOS you have highlight states when you're looking at things. So you know what you're going to interact with if you would tap your fingers together. But for our charts, that was a bit tricky because we're using Apple's Swift Charts framework, but then we had to add essentially our own UI on top of that to get the highlight state that we want, because Swift Charts doesn't natively support that with what we're doing to highlight segments of the chart that you're looking at. And we actually found a bug for that, or not a bug, but a little bit annoying behavior. So that's going to be in the next update to fix that.
Yeah, there's always something.
Yeah, especially because the way that Swift UI on VisionOS works is also very different. It doesn't actually, you're not actually controlling the view hierarchy. It's not what you're describing in Swift UI. It's not, it's a lot closer to what you're describing in Swift UI on iOS and macOS, but on VisionOS, they're actually rendering it in a completely different framework to get all the reality view type things to work, and so that you cannot intercept the view hierarchy because they don't want you to see. The developer shouldn't know where the user is looking, and if it would be your view hierarchy, you could of course observe like an highlight state, and therefore infer where people are looking. So it's a completely different process where they're rendering all of that. So it's quite different.
Yeah, but it was still solvable.
Do you have a wish list for WWDC this year?
I mean, just on a general level, I always hope that it will do more with like iPad OS and like allow it to catch up with the hardware.
Yeah. Did you watch the event?
Yeah, or most of it.
The iPad event?
I was confused by... I had known the time for the event, and then I forgot about it, and then I was completely surprised. Like people started to post on Mastodon. I was like, it looks like it's going... Oh, it's now.
It was a strange time.
It was a very unusual time. I assume because they had the in-person event in London. I think that's why the time was particularly weird. It wasn't fun. Josh actually for Deep Dish Swift, he rescheduled the talk so we could have a watch party. So we actually watched it with like 300 people in a room. So that was fun. I always like watching together. Great. What do you think about your iPads?
I mean, they look good, but it's also the thing. I'm still using my first Gen 12-inch iPad Pro, and it's it's getting older battery-wise, but it does its stuff.
What do you use your iPad for?
The main thing I use it for nowadays is actually drawing episode artwork for Quirks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So nice. It's a good excuse to get some drawing done, which I really enjoy.
Yes. Yeah. Are you using Procreate?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, it is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly good.
Yeah. I'm very just seeing the demo, like that part of the keynote of the presentation was very exciting to me, and Procreate is pretty much the main thing I use. I use my old iPad for. Yeah. But I still have the first iPad that supported the pencil, the first iPad Pro that supported the pencil.
Yeah.
I think it's from 2000.
The same one.
But the 9.7, so it came out a little bit after the one you're using.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm definitely starting to notice that it feels very sluggish, and it's also still having the old pencil that wasn't magnetically attached. So there's just so many things that I'll upgrade as part of this, and I have heard really good things about the new pencil and the sort of squeeze gesture, because there's apparently really good haptics, similar to on the Mac when you click the
they know their haptics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm very excited just for that, and I feel like I'm hoping I will push myself to do a lot more sketching and actually draw things, because I really like it, but I never really give myself time to do that. And I think when I have a new toy, I gotta experiment with it, right?
I don't think I won't upgrade immediately, but whenever this iPad gives up. I will look at the ones available and see which size I feel most like, I guess.
Yeah. Will also be interesting to see iPadOS 18 because, as you said, right, the hardware feels like it's been so far ahead software for, I don't know,
long time,
since forever, maybe.
Yeah, sort of.
At least since they renamed it to iPadOS, there was this expectation that now it will, actually be distinctively different. And the iPad hardware became way more powerful. Right now, it is pretty incredible, right?
Yeah, it's outrageous.
It's the first device with an M4. It has like the fastest single core performance of any device in Apple's entire lineup, and then we're still in iPadOS 17 with all its shortcomings.
Yeah, but it's interesting because they have sort of tried to make it a different OS. Not that. I think when you look at it from like the base, when you just unlock an iPad, it looks very similar to what it did when iPadOS first came out.
Yeah.
But they still have tried to do things like the stage manager and the different type of interaction to have multiple apps running at the same time, side by side. And they've sort of been iterating on this and changing things. But I feel like when I use my iPad, I still just fall back to using it in its standard mode. I don't use the stage management and those things. But so I'm curious, like, would you like it to work like macOS? Is that sort of what you're after?
No, I think I don't have a concrete idea, but I think ideally I would like it to grow into something different. Like, do we find its own thing? I don't know what that means, but don't try to be macOS for the sake of being macOS, because we have that.
Yeah,
and that one should also go more in its own direction, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, because that's the thing I'm concerned about. If they would try to make this more macOS-like, I'm concerned that macOS becomes more iOS-like, and you lose a lot of things that we love about macOS. Because once you start having it on a touchscreen device, people will want to use it as a touchscreen running macOS.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like the operating system is meant for that now, and I don't think it necessarily should.
No.
We don't want things to start. I'm all for them trying new things on macOS and like experimenting with that, but I still think that should fit to the form factor of a Mac. So I don't want to have sort of compromises on both sides.
Yeah, I can dig up a really old. I think it's a thought I had since like the first iPad. I want them to make Xcode but for touch. What if you do start with like how you use a touch surface and figure out a way of developing stuff that isn't about typing text, because why does it have to be about typing text? Text is really good for text, but we have that already. We have it on the Mac. We can do that. But do something new over here. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
It's also, I mean, there are still things I think iPadOS could learn from the Mac without it becoming more like the Mac. Like, I think there's a reason we have the iPad Air, or the iPad Air, and an iPad Pro. But it feels like the Pro is mini. Mostly... And Mini, of course. Apple's most beloved iPad that they update every 3 to 5 years.
The size is fantastic.
I do agree, the size is nice. But I feel like the Pro is mostly Pro in a, like, the hardware is more expensive. But it doesn't... It doesn't allow you to do really a lot of more pro things than the Air. So I think one thing that I wouldn't want to live on my Mac without is like a clipboard history. That would be something that would make it a lot more...
That would be devastating.
Yeah.
But there's so often that, especially once you're like in like flows and you're working on something, it's just nice to go back one step in your clipboard history or just check that. That would be a nice addition. That on macOS we have, because third parties could build it. On iPadOS, there's not apart from I mean, you're in Europe, so some Europeans can now get clipboard manager.
They can do some more stuff.
but like from how Apple designed the system, there cannot be a clipboard manager unless they build it. So we're kind of constrained there. So we need Apple to do it so we can have it. Similar with I think the iPad would be a great podcast studio device if they would give us more option for audio, right? Like more tools that can use access to your audio at the same time. At the moment, they don't allow those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
But clearly,
it is also a great
technically,
device.
it's possible. But unless they build that, no one can build a full like podcast studio in a device that does all the things that we would otherwise want to do on the Mac.
Yeah. But the iPad sort of lends itself perfectly for being that on-the-go device for podcast recordings. And we chatted with one of the speakers for the Deep Dish Shift podcast, and she does a lot of podcast editing and loves using the iPad app for that. I don't remember what the name of the app is, but it's this really cool third-party app.
Oh, Ferrite. Yeah, LumaFusion is the video one, right?
Yes.
I know people use Ferrite a lot.
Yeah. So apparently that's a really good iPad app, and it utilizes the pencil and like is using the platform in a really nice way. But there's no full solution there. They usually record their podcast on the Mac first and then go ahead and edit it on an iPad. But if you could do all of that, I agree. That would be a really cool use case, Kai.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of it from a different direction. Is there? Do you think there's anything Apple could do for the iPad specifically on WWDC, which would make you make an iPad app as a sort of summer frenzy project?
I always been intrigued to build some kind of pro tool for the iPad, but I think I've been held back because I'm not really an iPad user. But I do think if there's I think there's a lot of cool things where you can make a pro app feel more intuitive with the touch input. So yeah, I'd definitely be interested in building something. I have no idea what that is at the moment, though.
But if there was the right thing, it could happen.
Yeah. But I think that's the thing. They first have to win us over on iPadOS. I mean, most of our apps are on iPad, but more those are usually the platforms we don't build for ourselves, which is interesting because for most of the other things, we use our Mac app a lot for both Mercury and Orbit. We use the iPhone app a lot. We use the Watch app a lot. And then iPad is usually for like a couple of friends that keep nagging us. Why isn't it on iPad? It's like, all right, we build it on iPad. But then and we're like, all right, cool, this works. And then we use it. We're like, oh no, this is kind of awkward. And then we have to fix it. But it almost feels a bit more like a chore because we don't use it enough. Yeah. And I think for it to be something that we can, for us to build really good apps, we feel like we have to be users of that. Not that you can build nice apps for platforms you're not using, but for the way that we're like those kind of our own projects, we're always like, if it's something where every time we make a change, we can immediately like play with it and iterate and like make it better. So I think first have to be sold on iPadOS, and then maybe. But we already have our summer. We already have our summer project this year.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, it's gonna be a Kanban inspired task management that we want to build. Yeah, we want to build that for a while, and now we're actually gonna.
I guess we haven't been wanting to. We've been in search for something we can use for a while.
That is true.
And
yes.
We haven't, and we haven't found what we are looking for, and now we feel like we should just build it ourselves. How hard could it be?
Yeah, it's our typical. We use something that we're like 60% happy with. And then there are more and more paper cuts, and at some point we're like, "All right, done with paper cuts. Let's try it ourselves and see if we can build something that we really like to use."
Yeah, the nice and clean version.
Yeah, but also something like there's one thing that have you used Kanban for any of your task management? Is that a thing you're using?
No, not really. We're in Jira land at work. I think we're. I mean, work process-wise, I think we're kind of moving in a Kanban-ish direction.
Yeah.
But we're not actually using any Kanban type tools.
Yeah. One thing that we like about it is it's a very clean look into the state of our project, right? Because you have You have the things that you want to do next. You have the things that you're doing at the moment, and then at some point they're going into like our builds, and then they're done and get to external builds. Yep. So it feels like a lot of things kind of move from like leading to trailing edge of what we want to do.
Yeah.
But what we always found a little bit annoying for like the mobile app development type of life cycle is then once something is done, it's just in this ever-growing done column, and it just keeps growing forever. And that just feels it doesn't feel super satisfying. So ours will have, the simplest way to think about it is there's a done column per version that you're releasing. So first, like if you're working on, a new app and it's version 2.1, all the things that are done for 2.1, you put into the 2.1 done column. And if you work on some features maybe already for 2.2 or still some bug fixes for 2.01, those are separate columns. So it's not just one done column with all the things. And then once you actually create a release, similar to like creating a release branch in your Git flow, for example, you have all the things that you got done for that particular release. So it's really easy to go back.
Oh, nice.
We're not... Yeah, because we're not fans of the minor bug fixes and improvements in every release notes. We actually want to write what we do. But sometimes we don't remember, and then we have to go through our Git log, and because our done column in our Kanban thing is just this infinite thing, and we don't remember what goes where. So we thought if we put them into like more release buckets, we can see here all the things that made it into the release. And then depending on what happens in the summer, in June at DevDev, maybe we can even use like an on-device LLM to summarize the release and kind of generate release notes and maybe translate them to all the languages that your app supports automatically.
That's a really nice natural way of using machine learning there. It's perfect. So we hope that that's something that we can do on I mean, worst case, OpenAI has nice APIs for language models that can do that, but it would be kind of fun to not having to send those things to a server, both for like people that don't want to share all their task with OpenAI, AI, but also as a developer, if it would be something that doesn't incur API cost, that would make it a lot more. Would allow the app, because otherwise we always have to price the app for the worst user, right? Because we don't want to. No good.
So it would be cool if Apple has an on-device model that we could use for that, if it's good enough. That could be fun summer project, I think.
And it also would work nicely, moving stuff in columns on an iPad.
Definitely.
Or on Vision OS, of course.
And there was actually a friend of ours, Ben at Deep Dish, had a good idea. I don't know if you have that too, but sometimes you build a feature and then you get a customer support request that asks for exactly the feature you're working on. And then I often say, I will email you once it's ready. And then I inevitably forget. So it would be nice.
I think I may have done that. Yes.
So Ben's idea was to also have a place where you can add the email addresses or the contact details for the people that ask for the feature, or that either ask for the feature for you and you decide to build it as a result of that, or someone asking for a feature that you already have in your roadmap. And then you can add them. And then once you're done and you actually make it a release, it automatically also reminds you to email all the people that you promised you would send an update, which I think would be really nice, at least for me, because I try to keep track of it, and I have it in some kind of reminders thing that I then inevitably forget about. So if that could all be in one thing, I think that would be really cool. And then we could surface that rather than having to go through all the tickets individually and be like, is there anyone I want to email about this? Nope. Is there any? We could actually because we have the concept of now we create the release. One of the essentially checklist items of creating the release could be, and here's an email to let all the people that ask for it know that it will be in the release that's coming out on Monday or whatever.
I mean, that would be such a great thing to have in all sizes of projects.
I
mean, now that we talk about it, we have so much stuff like that at work. I mean, explicitly ask for, of course, like a customer wanting to know what's the status of this. Can you tell me when it's out? We forgetting to tell people, and also like who requested this originally. Let's bring up a list and be able to send an email. It would be fantastic. Don't make an enterprise version. but everyone should also implement this.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. So we're quite excited. The more we think, sometimes you have an idea, right? And the more you think about it, the less motivated you get. This is something, the more we think about it, the more excited we get. We're like, wait, we can do this a little bit different from everyone else. And that will be a good feature, and kind of have it more focused on like the mobile developer flow than all the more broader solutions like Trello, right? They have to cater from anyone that's like, from software development to people that do, build bridges. They cannot be very opinionated, right? They have to be very, very generic in their feature set. Yeah. But we like the idea that we can be pretty opinionated and building it for our flow. Yeah. And then we don't need to reach like 10 million users, right? We're happy if we get value out of it, that it's already worth it. And if then some of our friends also enjoy using it, that's just a nice bonus on top.
Yeah. And I haven't used Trello in ages, but the impression I got is that they've just kept adding stuff on top of it, so it's not nearly as clean and simple as it was before.
Yeah. They also unfortunately broke syncing on the iOS apps like 3 months ago and have still not fixed it, which
it sounds unfortunate.
Feels bit. Like a pretty core feature. It's and Malin and I had all the time when we were planning, because we use Trello at the moment, which is the reason for all the paper cuts. Yeah. We're talking about, we should do this, and Malin's like, no, that's done already. It's like, but why is it still in the to-do column? And then I kill the app and relaunch it, and then it updates, but it didn't just update when I open it. It was like, all right, great. So all the moves I made since then, they just never got committed. So I had to kill it and open it. And, So, but on the flip side, I'm kind of looking forward to building this.
Yeah, but often I feel like, that's got to be fixed anytime soon. But then this is the type of thing that just got worse and worse as time went on. And it's not the perfect app for us, and I feel like at this point we just don't have a good third-party app that we can use. So I think it's just going to be fun.
There's definitely room for
start building it.
Something else.
Yeah. And we'd like to have sort of a summer project.
Yeah.
If Apple does. Yeah. Especially if Apple does release on-device LLMs, that's just going to be a perfect motivator for us to get started. And we get a free deadline in September, so we know what to work towards.
I like your positive attitude to deadlines. It's refreshing.
If Apple gives you a free deadline, you take it.
Exactly. And that's a good feature as well.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I mean, not like hard in the grand scheme of like things that are hard in life, but it is when you work on your own things. It's really easy. Like the trip forecast feature took us way longer because we didn't have a clear deadline, right? It was more. It was more of a when it's done, and then there were other things coming up, and we kind of got sidetracked, and then we had some problems with some of the time zone logic, so we stepped away from it for a little while, right? It wasn't like we worked on it for 3 months intensely. It was more through that process. We're like, I don't know, we're some logical, like conceptually, how does this even work? And then you step away for a week or two. So it's easy for things to drag out. I think we're fairly okay at keeping ongoing because we want to release things. But once you have a deadline with September, with iOS 18, I assume it's September again. Apple has been pretty consistent.
Wild guess.
It is then nice because that's when you need to be done, and then you make those kind of constraints make you forces you to focus on the core things you want to get done and not add all the bonus things. You can do those later. It's a nice thing about software.
Yeah, I mean I do agree. Like good deadlines are definitely a useful thing. Yeah, I mean the thing we keep complaining about are usually like fake deadlines or someone making up a deadline for something without. Okay, we have a date. We haven't clarified what we're doing. We have a label for it. We don't know what it means. Those kind of deadlines. I don't. I don't value that much.
No, that's true. Especially when the feature set is immovable, right? When it's like, here are all the things exactly that we need to do, and here's an arbitrary date and time when we ship it. It's like, well, then the deadline has no purpose. You're just, but if you're in a situation where you can decide, all right, that means we really focus on the things we think are the most valuable, I think that's when a deadline actually helps you in your process.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than just adding an extra layer of frustration.
Yeah, exactly. It can actually be motivating.
So. Yeah. And it's super satisfying when you hit it and you're like, wow, we actually, it was a few, usually that means September is a few late nights. But then it feels so satisfying when you're like, all right, and now it's shipped, and now the status on App Store Connect is waiting for Apple release. I was like, all right, we made it.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah.
And
it's very fun to be part of, like, it's sort of the celebration of everyone who's been like working on things throughout the summer and having new fun things, try the new APIs. There's some frustration trying new APIs, but at the same time you sort of help. Yeah. But you are sort of part of it, and you can chat with people at meetups about like all the new things. And I sometimes been working on apps that had to support like very old versions of iOS, and then you sort of look at everything that comes out at WWDC, and you're like, that's fun, but I have to wait 3 years until I can start using it. Whereas when you build a completely new app, you can just say like, okay, we're only supporting iOS 18, and we're gonna try all those fun things, and awesome. I really like that. Yeah.
You're not going to WWDC, are you?
Nope. I have some ideas that I want to put in my app, but not related to anything else. I want to add some shortcut support, and it seems like that has got a lot easier and quicker than it used to be last time I looked at it. So,
is that for the chapter?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. And someone actually asked for like scripting support a week or two ago. So,
cool.
It could actually be useful to people as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's it's not dependent on Apple to do anything in particular.
I mean, it depends. I could imagine for this year, if Apple has more like AI agents on the device, I could imagine that the shortcut system is what enables a lot of that.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting point.
Because
absolutely.
If you can. Because you expose essentially all the actions that can be taken in the app, and if I could imagine that we're annotating it with more details, so that the on-device agent then understands what to do, and then you can actually just talk to it in a normal way, and it could actually maybe get this file and then put it into your app and generate all the things they want to do, and then maybe get it automatically uploaded afterwards, and it's more you're describing what you want, and it can use the apps on device to get those actions done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I actually heard some people who they were basically building a testing framework for web apps, where like OpenAI has a sort of API like that. You can provide functions that the language model can invoke. So they wrote like text-based testing instructions, and then here are the functions for testing stuff, and then it chose which things to call. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, I should put in shortcut support.
Yeah, because I do hope that Apple's approach is more because a lot of the AI agent or AI devices, they're very much appless, right? The idea is like there's no app to do anything. You're just telling it, and then it makes up a random answer.
Exactly.
Well, I think the idea of third-party apps being more involved in that and providing features to it, I think that could be a really cool use case where you still have an app that you can use if you want to. Sometimes talking to a device is not the best way of getting something done, or even just like a good way of verifying, right? If you add into shortcut support into podcast chapters, there's maybe value in the AI, like some of the scripting, but then you might still want to see in the app what does it actually look like, and then you're like, I'm happy with that, right?
Yeah.
There's like open the app can just be result. Exactly. It just is already in the state that you want it to.
Yeah.
And then you're just visually verifying, which might be better than getting audio feedback about all the chapters in your podcast, right?
Yeah. Read all the chapters to me.
From timestamp.
Yeah.
2 times. It's probably longer than a podcast sometimes if I would do that.
Yeah. For some episodes, definitely.
Yeah. And some apps just lend themselves very good to audio feedback, but anything that's visual, like for podcast chapters, obviously, but also for weather app, like getting the weather report in audio does not work for me.
No, it's a different thing, definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, visually it works really well for me. So I think there's definitely going to be quite a range, and it would be nice to be involved in AI on iOS and macOS rather than it just trying to do everything without third party.
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something. This is exciting.
But my point was that also means I could imagine that there's some changes to shortcuts to give more support to an agent. So I think that will be. It might be a good time now to get started, and then you can add the new things, and then you have a really cool new macOS release alongside the new macOS releases.
Makes a lot of sense.
Do it. What is your? How do you two feel about the timeline of releases for iOS and macOS? In the past, we always had iOS in September and then macOS at some point later, like a little bit more fluffy of a time period.
Last year was really fast, though, right? Wasn't it just a week?
It was. Yeah, it was much tighter, and it does start to feel like, as Apple is starting to make more of their apps as a build more of their apps in SwiftUI that are available across iOS and macOS. I wonder if we'll see the two operating systems being released at the same day eventually. I think Kai and I were sort of speculating about this for like a few years now.
Yeah, I think it would make sense. As long as they say it clearly beforehand, it would be great.
Yes, I would like that. I'm not going to hold my breath for that being what's happening, but it will be nice.
Yeah.
Last year for Sonoma, it was coming out 8 days after the iOS 17 release.
And the year before they were like, and it's coming tomorrow, right?
No, I think was that 15?
That was 15.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that one was frustrating.
I think they learned their lesson. I think they will not do that again.
I hope so.
There's so many developers being not disgruntled, but very surprised by that action.
But not just external ones. I think also internally. Like usually they always have those stories on the App Store, right? On day one. Great new apps for iOS 17.
Oh, yeah.
That year, the App Store didn't, there were no one was ready because how could they? They couldn't. And even if they were ready, the App Store team wouldn't have any time to try them out.
No,
so that was just...
no one has a chance.
Yeah, so it's like it's so disappointing when you install your new iOS version and then you go to the App Store and there's nothing that uses the new APIs and the new features. That was a weird year.
Yeah, I hope they learned. It seems like they learned.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're aiming for essentially simultaneous release, right?
It makes sense with so many of the features.
Yeah, you don't want. Yeah. And especially if we get a lot of AI features and your phone is gets like, let's say, a new Siri and it's much smarter, and then you talk to Siri on your Mac and it's still the old version, that would be very strange.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
More excited now.
I think it will be a fun year.
Yeah. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward. We're both of Malin and I are fortunate to have gotten tickets this year.
Oh, cool.
So we will. Yeah. We'll be there and
great
and report back.
That's I trust. I rely on that. Especially WWDC report.
That might actually be fun if you're up for it. We could do a post WWDC special Kurzsnag episode.
Yeah, of course.
We can report about.
Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome.
Yeah. And if anyone who's listening is going to be around, we also have meetups throughout the week scheduled at different coffee shops because we figured there's so many people who are around longer. We had it already last year, and it sort of started to feel a bit more like pre-pandemic WWDC. People sort of hang around and go to events and those type of things. And it is like what we talked about with conferences. It's a chance to have more social time if you stay a bit longer. So we added those meetups pretty much every morning throughout the week.
Yeah, you had lots of them. I remember getting the email.
Yes.
There's a pattern.
We're Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Those we have, because we thought it's a nice place. Because the coffee meeting is like in the not too early because people are doing things up until like late in the night.
People,
so we don't.
AKA we are not morning people.
But we figured it's nice to have a place in the morning-ish for people to meet up and then figure out what to do with the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's perfect.
It worked really well the last year. And this year, the Sunday meetup is already full, and we had 120, I think 122 spots.
Wow!
And it's we have a wait list, so we're trying to figure out what to do there.
Yeah,
but it's good to see that. Yeah, it's nice to see that people seem to appreciate it.
Yeah.
But then as the week goes on, it's Sunday is definitely the busiest, and we aligned it timing wise because there's check-in at Infinite Loop for people that get a ticket. So the timing is we have coffee in the morning, and then everyone that has a ticket can venture together to Apple to Infinite Loop and check in and get their badge and those kind of things. I think that will be.
Is it known roughly how many people have got tickets?
I don't know. Think based on last year,
we were there last year, and it felt like maybe 1,000 people were there.
That's pretty big.
It was 1,000. I mean, there's also a lot of Apple engineers that are attending.
Yeah, that's true.
But I would say roughly it feels like 1,000 attendees in that ballpark.
Yeah. Good time.
But very surprised. Like not as big as pre-pandemic Dub, but
it was like
a very large. You cannot.
I think
enough that you can talk to everyone, even if you really try.
Exactly. Not even with meetups every morning.
Yeah.
But what I really like about this new format is that I feel like it feels like what people describe to the early days as being the early days of WWDC. It feels like everyone who's there, they are very passionate about what they're doing and they care about what they do and I think that's a lot because it is only a one-day event and it's free. And in the past, I noticed that there were a lot of people whose company just sort of sent them because they had one question for this one lab they were going to go to. But they might not be like, the person going might not be a dedicated iOS or Apple developer was here. It sort of feels like you have to be a little bit crazy to commit to like flying all the way to California.
Nobody's there by accident.
No.
Yeah. And there's also no real commercial value, right?
No, that's true.
Your big company is not going to send you there to watch a keynote video.
Right?
Yeah.
So, that's good. It's back to the crazy ones.
Well, it really is.
Yes.
That was kind of at my first in-person WWDC. What was it? 2017?
2017?
Yeah, something like that.
2017.
One person I talked to, I was super excited after the keynote, and I talked to a random person in, I think, the bathroom line. It's like, what do you think about the keynote? And they're like, oh, I didn't go. I was like, what?
It's not okay. It's not okay.
So what brings you here is like, my company sent me, and they have this. I have like 2 questions that the team wrote, so I'm gonna go to the lab, and then I head back. So the person only flew in, didn't go to the keynote. Didn't want to. The only thing is they were annoyed that there was a bathroom line, and then they have the 2 question that their big company decided, and it was also the questions were not even that was the question was something that was you could have Googled the answer. That was not like having to fly to Apple and ask like an engineer. It was like, how do I invalidate certain constraints? I was like, that's what Stack Overflow is for, not
exactly.
Yeah, but instead they flew this person. to WWDC to ask us one question and then fly out. So they were they got a ticket for $1,600 US. Took a seat from someone.
Also when you had to pay for the ticket.
To be there for probably an hour. That was. I was very, very disappointed in that.
Yeah, that's
the company.
Why are you here? No punishment.
Yeah. But I'm very excited.
It's about time to wrap up for today.
Yeah.
But let's do this again.
Let's do it.
WWDC.
Yeah, no, I think that would be really fun. And I'm always so excited, like this time of year when Dub comes around.
Yeah.
I'm still as excited as I was first time I was gonna go to WWDC. So it's gonna be very fun.
It's still closest to what Christmas feels like when you're a child.
Yeah, I agree.
It still has that where I have a countdown to Dub on my home screen. I cannot wait.
Good.
Man, now we didn't talk as much about what you've been up to. Gotta do.
No, I have been working on work stuff, I guess. Keeping the podcast rolling.
And you also started a new podcast since we talked last, right?
Yeah, I do one with a friend. We do it like roughly monthly. So it's it has some kind of sort of productivity or how we do stuff focus, but it's very, very loose around the edges in a nice way. And then we fell prey to like winter illnesses of various kinds, like slightly overlapping but not completely for 3 months now.
No.
Yeah, but it's fun to do. It's good to have a reason to like talk to each other for an hour every now and then. It's great.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. Tack för att just du lyssnar på Kodsnack. Om du vill stödja oss, varför inte tipsa en bekant om podden? Eller lämna en recension i till exempel iTunes eller något annat ställe där det går att sätta betyg på poddar. Du kan också stödja oss genom att köpa oss en kopp kaffe på Coffee. ko-fi.com/kodsnack. Alla pengar går direkt till att göra podden bättre och trevligare. Du kan också komma och hänga i vår Slack-kanal. Länk finns på kodsnack.se, precis som alla andra länkar och all annan info kopplat till varje avsnitt. Sist men inte minst finns det också en länk till vår Spreadshop-butik där du kan köpa tröjor och andra prylar med kodsnacktryck. Återigen, tusen tack för att du lyssnar. Vi hörs.
Let me put it this way, Mr. Raymer. The 9000 series is the most reliable computer ever made. No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted information. We are all, by any practical definition of the words, foolproof and incapable of error.